Okay, so today we are here to go through a couple of steps related to having the network policies working with Cilium, using both the cluster integration and GMA v2 and GitLab. So we are going to go through Alexander's setup. He's not starting from the scratch today, so it's going to be a free session. So let's go from there.
Cool. So as that's signing in, basically what I have done thus far is I have my onboarding from months and months and months ago. I'm almost at a year, by the way. One more month, and in here in the defend, what was called the defend onboarding, they talk about after you get your runner set up, here's the Kubi control and stuff, all that. So I did go through all this. I installed Google Cloud SDK, which I'm not using that much. I installed Kubi control, Helm, Minikube. I have all this Docker, as you can see up here. The runner, that's not part of this. Local registry, I did this. I set up the local cluster as defined here. I believe I got these IP addresses from some how-tos in here. One must always remember that the GDK repo has a plethora of how-to docs right here. And so one of them is the registry. It tells you set up all this with your GDK YAML. I've done that. I have yeah, in here it talks about all that. I have not been able to use HTTP yet. That is something I've sort of pushed off for now. I don't really care about it, but I am sort of blocked right here. But anyways, Minikube is something I have set up, and if I go in here, Minikube, how do I view my registry, Zamir?
The registry, it's outside Minikube, so the registry is going to be part of GDK. Is that what you're asking?
I wanted to sort of give proof that I've set things up. I guess this is good enough proof. You can see these namespaces are active.
You want to see the context that you have for kubectl?
Sure. Cool.
And
so,
you see the asterisks on the one that you have set as default in the bottom.
Got it. Oh yeah, sure. So I have a cluster set up, and so I went to the project I wanted to configure that cluster with. I went to operations Kubernetes, and I connected a cluster with certificate, which is what this one was. But if you go connect existing cluster, and I just followed this documentation, and I did all of these things. So when filling this out, the cluster name can be whatever. The API URL you can get by running this command. You throw that in there. You do all, basically just follow this, and I was able to connect my cluster. No problem. So as you see, not environments. As you see here with the cluster, I've named it local cluster 1, but there is information where we do see that there's one node. So that means it is actually attached. And if I go here, I must install Prometheus, and here I could do that. This will take a while, but it'll work. I had this working before. And so this is where I sort of get stuck now, because I don't know if for policies we need Cilium installed, and I don't know what that next step is. I have this that I ripped from staging, and I believe this is what you're talking about, where you have the YAML file, maybe.
When you have the template, when you use that template managed application apps, that's the cluster GMA v2. And this is the configuration file that sets the applications that you want to install. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so I could do cluster and like link it this way. I don't know.
Yes, there is one thing is that as you are using Minikube, Minikube has a couple of options. And the way that Cilium works is that Cilium is a CNI plugin. So then it means that there is going to be a plugin to for the container network. And then what happens is that whenever you start Minikube, if you're going to install a custom CNI, by default, I think it's Bridge. So you need to tell Minikube that you need this flexibility.
Do I have Cilium installed? I do. I went to the Cilium documentation, went to getting started using Minikube, and I did all of this and just followed all of these things, and then we can validate that installation.
So I think you've already done what my suggestion is going to be, because the thing with GMA v1 and v2 even is that for larger clusters, the admins tend to want to do their own thing, and GitLab for a smaller cluster, it does the job, but once you start running to more complex problems, it won't address that, and then you're going to have to do manual things anyway. So for the people that we're targeting for this, they're already doing all that, so there's no point asking them to go to GitLab and clicking. They can just run Helm and do the command line install. And this is probably the direction that the configure team is going as well, with removing some of the stuff. So you're going to have the option to tell GitLab, hey, this application is already installed in the cluster, here's how you talk to it, but you won't be able to install it in the using the interface anymore. So we've already done that, which is great.
Got it. Great shout out. Cool. So now I have Cilium installed, and this sort of isn't doing anything maybe for me right now. What do I do now?
So, okay, so then I sent you the Minikube configuration on the Slack. It means that for us to be able to install Cilium into Minikube, we need to be able to start Minikube with a settings that's going to allow Cilium to overwrite the CNI that's set by default. So you probably need to change your insecure registry, and also you probably need to do a Minikube delete before, because Minikube is a single node, and I think it just supports one instance.
My tip for you, Alexander, put a hash in front of that line, press enter, so it'll be in your history and you can come back for it.
That's exactly what I want.
Awesome.
Yes. Okay, and then I know I want to, I did this similarly before, and I know my registry is this IP address.
Yeah. So you, yeah, okay. So you did a CNI Cilium. If you do that, it actually installs Cilium. So then you're not going to use GMA v2. Does it make sense?
Yeah, got it.
What we want is that we just want to say that we are going to have a CNI, and we are going to let Minikube use the default one. And then after you run GMA v2, Cilium is going to be installed, the pods are going to be restarted, and you're going to have Cilium installed by using GMA.
So what happens after this, Zamir? We're going to use GMA v2 to install Cilium?
First step, we're going to do what Alexander did before. We are going to use the cluster integration to fill out the information about the cluster API, cluster credentials, service token. And then with that, Alexander is going to set the project that he has as a cluster management alpha. And then we can just hit the pipeline. We can just double check the configurations that he has in his project. And then we hit the pipeline to install Cilium using GMA v2 into the cluster.
And the advantage of that, of course, is that if you're sharing a cluster with someone, everybody can work off the same source, right? They all have the same project management. Whereas if you do it manually, you know, people don't know what values you've used for the installation. Who knows what you've done, right?
Yeah, and also with cluster management, if you make a change on the project, let's say that you install Prometheus, you go there in config file, you say Prometheus install true. That's going to trigger a new pipeline. And then it's going to just check the difference, and it's going to install Prometheus in the cluster. So then it's kind of having a source of true on the CI.
Do we want to maybe do the project configuration while we wait for this?
Yeah, we can go to the project configuration. That's a very good call.
You're talking about here, right?
Yeah, we can go a step back if you want. Yeah, so the only requirement that we actually need is the line 1 and 2. Of course, it's important to have the other scanners and everything. But in terms of this feature, line 1 and 2 would be enough. The only thing is that right now we are having, I have an MR that's going to make Hubble installed by default, and the MR hasn't got merged yet. So then I'm gonna send you what I would like you to add as well. Would you rather have this on Slack or Zoom?
Okay, Zoom.
Okay.
Also, is it necessary for having policy set up?
Not for policy, just for later on if you want to play with the alerts.
Let's forego Hubble for now then.
Okay, let's do that. So then if you go inside the GitLab management apps directory, you're going to find config.yml. That's the one that you were showing before. Okay, so we are not using GKE, so we need to take line 1 off, because we are just going to use the basic default, that basic settings that doesn't require this. Also, we don't need GitLab WAF installed, false, mod security blocking. You can take the whole stuff. And yeah, that's it for this file. Also, in case you were looking forward to have Cilium as a blocking, you would have to create a folder called Cilium under management apps, and you would have to overwrite, because by default the Cilium is in audit mode. Just a heads up for the future, because sometimes you deploy it and then you check Cilium logs and you don't see anything, and you're wondering, oh, is my Cilium work or things like this. It's going to work. It's just in audit mode by default.
But audit mode still logs the message, right? It just doesn't block anything. You still get the messages, I think.
I don't think you have a message in Cilium log, but maybe you have the stats somewhere.
Ah.
Oh, and here's the documentation around installing Cilium that mentions that here.
Exactly. Yeah, and on the top of this file, you have this information about the structures in the directory that we are talking about.
Got it.
If you go, yeah, the usage, you have all these specific requirements that you have the template. You have a main file config, and then you can overwrite each application by create a folder with the same name and a values.yml inside.
Cool. All right, so this is done.
Okay, so now do you want to just end up the configuration file first, and then we go back to the host?
Sure. What was that?
Did you save all the changes that we did?
Yeah, I committed them.
Awesome. Okay, so we have everything in master, right?
Yep.
Okay, because the management template just builds if we are on master.
Yep.
Okay, so now let's go back to the cluster, and I would like you to grab the information that you have to integrate with GitLab.
Okay.
One other thing that I almost forgot is that as we are using Cilium with Minikube, we need to run this line here to enable BPF. Sorry, that's it's on Cilium docs. That's the tricky part. We need to balance how much we hard code in our side, how much we need to dig into Cilium docs, and how much we need to be up to date with Minikube.
Dope. Got it.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that is that's somewhere in here. Here it is.
Yes.
Cool.
Okay. So now we need to go doing that cluster integration.
Okay, so all these commands you sent me, they look like actually, so you want me to basically connect another cluster?
Or remove this one. Yeah, connect another one.
Connect the existing one. The documentation here is very good. So
yeah, you can follow the documentation if you want.
Let's call it the same thing again.
Mm-hmm.
The API is here.
I wish we had the UI thing with the copy button.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Sounds like a good issue we could make.
Mm.
And just a reminder why you're doing this. A reminder that you don't need to go this one first. Yeah. Oh, you need for the name, right? I did some hackery that I don't need to do that. So the important thing here to remember is that the cluster integration is used by both V1 and V2.
Okay. Yeah. I've done this already somewhere. Yeah, it's there.
Cool.
And you can trust me that it's the same.
Mm-hmm.
There's my beautiful token.
Nice.
Okay. Add?
Yes. Cool. Now we go to the advanced settings. And you add the projects that you have over there that we were just playing before. And now let's go to the project.
You want the cluster management project?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
But it's
so,
okay. The run error would have gotten in a way anyway.
Yeah. So cluster management project, when you go to a cluster integration and you say that the cluster management project, it can be considered as a cluster management alpha, it means that this project is going to have access as a cluster admin in your cluster. All the other regular projects, they don't have that amount of power, so they cannot make a change in a cluster, like updating the CNI, for example. Does it make sense? So when you run other projects and you get into the deploy stage, it means that you're going to have a couple of credential sets there that you're able to run some pods and some deployment, but you don't have cluster admin privileges.
So by running this, we are updating a cluster.
Exactly.
You're running a bunch of Helm and kubectl commands behind the scenes.
Do you want to do it's working. Do you want to do the kubectl get pods -- all -- namespace on your console? -w at the end, yes. Yeah, so what's going to happen is that you're going to see things piling up over there. And
This is amazing.
So expecting Cilium to show up in that.
Yeah,
Oh,
now
look at
ingress.
that.
And
So
the
Cilium
ingress?
is installed. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
So the trick
Iago, have
here
you
is
been
that
here before?
the trick is that there are so many different pieces apart, especially documentations that can change anytime. But after you do a couple of times, it's not that complicated.
Is there documentation for, hey, job succeeded. Is there documentation for GMA v2 somewhere? Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So those are it's basically 3 steps. One step is add your template. Second one is to add the config YML. And then if you want to custom each program, you need to define a values.yml under each folder.
I see. So I should have been right here. This is exactly what we're doing right here, is
yes,
connecting, updating, adding, and then running the pipeline
on master, because otherwise the deploy is not going to run. It's tied to master branch.
So now that we have Ingress and Cilium installed, how do we tell this is working?
We can go to, that's a very good question. I'm going to send you, let's do, can you open another terminal besides? Okay, so the only trick here is that we deployed in audit mode. That's why I was not happy with that. So what happened is that on the cluster integration, you define this project with cluster admin privileges. So it means that whenever you run this pipeline here, it's going to have an effect in the cluster.
Got it. Okay.
And then do you want to go in new rule?
First of all, everybody, this looks pretty good down here, right?
Whoever's done that, tremendous job.
Okay. Thank you. What were you saying, Zamir?
You need to add a new rule just to do not allow anything. And you can go in the key value and just type app column none. Yeah, that doesn't exist, so it's not going to allow anything. And you can enable the policy first, yeah, or you can create and enable later on.
Like that?
Yeah.
I think this is complaining that my name had a space in it.
Yeah, it's very picky with the allowed characters. Okay. So then,
oh, hey. There's a policy there.
Should I edit out your surprise?
So now, do you wanna try to trigger something? We can go in the cluster now. Just try to trigger a curl or something. Do you wanna open another terminal? Sorry, that's a little bit of a. Let's try the. Do you wanna do kubectl get svc --all -namespace just for us to see which service do you have over there for us to ping?
What was that? S --.
All namespaces.
All, like
all
of them? Yes. So we have, oh, there is something here that might be good to mention. Can you see that under the third service, we have a GitLab management apps and we have ingress controller. If you follow that to the right, you're going to see external IP spending. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So it means that it's waiting something to provide it an external IP. So what do you do in this case? You just have another terminal and you do a Minikube tunnel. That's going to open all the all this case is to external, and then you can use the browser, or you can use anything to have your ingress working. Nice.
And that is actually in the onboarding doc.
Yes, it's there. It's just so many.
Hey, I can check that off now.
Well, let's go to the repository that you have the cluster management project.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's go to the repository.
Okay.
We need to go inside GitLab management apps. We need to create a new folder there called Cilium.
Okay.
And also inside that folder, let's go first, Cilium. Yeah.
Actually, this is perfect time for the web ID.
Now we create a file inside this folder called values.yml, full spelled.
Like that?
With A as well. YAML, yes. And then inside this file, we are going to have, I'm gonna send you here, so then it's not like awkward. That's what we're going to have inside this file. It's basically a config key. And under this config key, we have a detention to this policy.mode, false, yes. I think we should see the pipeline running automatically, and there is going to be an update on the Cilium side of things. It shouldn't touch ingress at all.
Will I see that in any of our logs running?
On the one that you have the pods, you should see something.
Here?
Yeah.
Restarts. This got restarted recently. Age
No,
38 seconds.
It's going to show another one on the bottom. Oh, do you think it did already?
It's there already.
It's crazy.
It's fast. Okay.
Okay. So let's
do the curl again.
Yes. Awesome.
Okay.
So there's nothing coming there as well. So then this is the source of truth. If it's not coming here, it's not generating anything. So then what we're going to do now, quit this log there. And we are going to, from this pod, we are going to access the other serves inside the cluster. So in this case, it should force the network policy to come up, the drop event to come up. So we can quit this one, Control-C. We need a terminal somewhere that we're going to grab the name of the pod, the serves that we're going to trigger.
Wait, quick thing here.
Do you want to know what's going on?
Should we be continuing this?
It will be quick. So what's happening is we're trying to access the load balancer IP, and it's not showing there. So I think what Zamir is going to do is going to try a connection within the pod, from pod to pod, and that should trigger the policy.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's a DNS problem. You can't find that.
Yeah.
So where did you get that name from? Oh, there you go, some drops. Where did you get that name from, Zamir?
Awesome. What do you mean?
That name, the GitLab managed apps, blah, blah, blah.
It's a namespace. So can you go back to that screen, Alexander, please? So do you want to run the command again, kubectl get serves all namespaces, just to be clear for everybody? Sorry.
Oh.
the serves is that the one that we're looking for.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
It's right here.
Yes. So the first column is the namespace. Second column is the name of the serves. So the format that it works internally for Kubernetes is that namespace dot serves name dot svc dot cluster dot local.
So if I do the first column dot the second column dot svc dot cluster dot local, it knows how to resolve that.
Exactly. In this case, now it's getting totally lost because we are just breaking everything, but we get the drops.
I can explain what that mess. So get the last line there. See it says from and to. See that last part there has got a 53 UDP. So 53 UDP is one of the ports for DNS. That's how I know that it's trying to resolve. So he gave the curl command is trying to resolve that name that Zamir gave you. But because the policy that we added in the beginning is a deny all, it's denying even the DNS. So it can't even get the DNS. But if this was allowed, if we put a policy in there that allows any DNS, any port 53, and then try again, the next deny is going to be a deny for port 80.
All right. So we're in the cluster now, and now we're going to be curling from one container to another.
Exactly.
And Cilium is managing the networking between these containers in this cluster. And so that this is where our policy should come into play, but I've disabled it, so we shouldn't see any drops currently. So if we go here, this is where I am monitoring the drop. And if I do this, it could not resolve host. Because, which is what we expected.
Can I see the host name? So it's GitLab manage apps.hubble metrics. Yeah, that looks right. Zamir?
We shouldn't get the message. We cannot resolve host.
Yeah, so from what I understood you said before, it's like the name dot the the namespace dot the service name dot the name dot svc dot cluster local, and it knows how to resolve that.
Yeah,
but
can you just can you check again the name of the source, Alexander? Sorry, I missed that.
At this point, let me explain what was happening there. We're all confused because we were seeing a DNS resolution error that we were not expecting. However, there were no drops in the log, which was what we wanted, because we went to GitLab, we disabled the policy and applied it to the cluster. So that was right. The problem was that the namespace and the service name in the URL used in curl were in the reverse order. Had we noticed that and reverted them and did it again, we would have seen curl returning a response from the HTTP service. Zamir recorded a video with this exact situation, but only the happy paths. If you just want to see a shorter, more direct video of how it should work, have a watch of that. It's in the description.